LSU offensive coordinator Joe Sloan dishes on his quarterback room, present and future. You'll hear it next. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Joe Sloan meets with reporters twice a year, once during fall camp and once during spring football. Tuesday happened to be the day that Joe Sloan met with reporters smack dab in the middle of spring. I was in the room, listened to everything he had to say. You better believe I have some takeaways. So we're going to work our way through that here on today's episode. So buckle up, and we're glad to have you aboard with us here. I want to start by going backwards before we go forwards. And I want to go back to a day in late November that most LSU fans would like to forget. And that was the day that Bryce Underwood flipped from LSU to Michigan. Now, I know that's a pretty terrible memory because we had all psyched ourselves up about the idea of Bryce Underwood being the LSU quarterback for 2, possibly 3 years and leading LSU to championships and winning a Heisman and all the things that went along with it. And in an instant, that was gone. And we like to forget it. But that singular moment did serve as a collective shove to shape the future of LSU. That moment is what stirred LSU supporters into opening up their checkbooks and funding the collective to go after this transfer portal class. It's also what's led LSU to the state of the current quarterback room and who might be joining it next. But we'll get there. Joe Sloan was asked the question, and I promise there's a point that ties it into spring. I promise I'm getting there. But Joe Sloan was asked if Bryce Underwood flipping is changing the way that LSU will approach the quarterback position in the future.
Things happen, right? Things happen in college football, and you do what's best for the program. You make the decisions that are best for the program, and you rock and roll forward. We couldn't be more excited how everything worked out. I think Michael's done an excellent job. We may not have been in the same situation if that was the case, right? I think I couldn't be more excited about the future of the offense. So in terms of, recruiting, I think just in today's world of recruiting, every day's a new day. You just keep attacking that day. It's still all about relationships. You got to go with those first. Obviously, there's some external factors, but we can't worry about the things we can't control. We just got to continue to recruit to the best of our ability with our relationships, talking about LSU, talking about Coach Kelly's program, talking about the tradition of this place. And that's why you continually see excellent players committing to LSU.
Okay. You know the saying, two things can be true at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. You can be excited about Michael Van Buren, but also really disappointed about what happened about Bryce Underwood. When Joe Sloan says, I couldn't be more excited with how things turned out, my guess is if you hook Joe Sloan up to a lie detector, he's pretty bummed about the way things turned out. That's not to say he's bummed about Michael Van Buren. He can be excited about Michael Van Buren, but nobody spent more time recruiting Bryce Underwood than Joe Sloan. A massive part of the reason Underwood was committed to LSU was Sloan. Joe Sloan effectively took up residence in Michigan. Nobody went to Michigan more. Nobody saw Bryce Underwood more. Nobody talked to Bryce Underwood more. Sloan was a huge part of why Bryce Underwood was committed. So I don't think it's truthful to say I couldn't be more excited about the way things turned out, because we all wanted Bryce Underwood here, Joe Sloan chief among them. Now, also true is you can be excited about Michael Van Buren. This is a guy who started 9 games a season ago in the SEC for Mississippi State. And if nothing else, this has given you a safety net for 2026. Not only does it give you a guy in 2025, God forbid, knock on Formica, if something were to happen to Nussmeier, you got a guy that has SEC starting experience. Okay, that's a huge benefit. But when Nuss is gone after 2025, you have a guy in Van Buren who's been a starter, who will then have been a year in the LSU program and in a position as a third-year player, presumably to take the reins as the starter. Now, Colin Hurley is still part of the program as well and could factor into that mix, but it's worth mentioning. So here was Sloan on Michael Van Buren.
Mike obviously played extremely well, did a lot of great things at Mississippi State last year. So when we had the opportunity to add him to our roster, we couldn't have been more excited. When he gets comfortable, when you've really seen it, we've seen it a lot this spring, his comfortability in the pocket is exceptional. I mean, it is exceptional. And I think that's a really huge talent for him. And then he can drive the football now. He can touch every piece of the field with his arm. I've really liked his growth. Some of the things that we do, he hasn't necessarily done, but he's a quick learner. Once he does it once and as he feels it, he's been able to make the adjustments and make the growth. I think both Tim Rattay and Trey Holtz and some of the different things they've been able to do. And that's a great part when you have great coaches. We're able to kind of split off and really focus on what the individual guys need. And I think that's helped Mike a ton.
Gosh, there's so much good stuff in there. First of all, saying his pocket presence is exceptional. Okay, that's a great thing. And that's something, quite honestly, that is innate. You go around quarterbacks, they'll tell you. Like, when you'll hear the saying, a quarterback can feel the pressure. They got eyes in the back of their head. That's what he's talking about. So that's something that's innate that you can't teach. It's a huge check mark for Van Buren. And then he says he can touch every part of the field. It means he can make every throw. So he's got the physical ability to make every throw. He's got great pocket presence. He's a really good athlete as well. We've seen that just in some of the practices. The media has been able to see the dynamic running ability. And very candidly said, look, he hasn't done some of the things we've done. Now remember, he came from Mississippi State head coach is Jeff Lebby. Jeff Lebby is sort of the wide open fun and gun air raid, that sort of offense. So it is different what he's going to be asked to be doing at LSU. But once he learns that, you heard him say, once he learns that, he'll be better for it. And remember, Tim Rattay, former college quarterback, former NFL quarterback. Dude spent the last decade coaching quarterbacks at the college level, is an analyst on LSU staff. Remember, analysts can coach on the field. So listen, in spring, if Sloan wants to take Nussmeier and the starting receivers go work, you can say that to Van Buren, go work with this former NFL quarterback who's got a decade of college quarterback coaching experience and NFL coaching experience. Go work on how to be a system quarterback in what we do. Love that and the upside of Michael Van Buren. And that's the great part about spring. That's why you need guys here in spring, because when you get into fall camp, yes, you have this short runway of 2 weeks of fall camp before you're into game week for your season opener. There just isn't a lot of time to get guys up to speed. That's why it's always surprising when guys who show up in June are ready to play week one. It happens so seldom because you need that runway, that ramp up for guys to improve. But by the time guys that are here in spring, man, you're here in spring, you're getting all the classroom work, the on-field work, you're getting your workouts then in June. By the time you start fall camp, it's almost like your second practice session, and then you get into game week for the first time. You've already been on campus for almost a year. So it just accelerates everything, which is so good to see. Now, the other quarterback on campus in spring right now, of course, is Jawan Johnson. And I'm the one who asked Joe Sloan the question about Jawan, and specifically why they made this decision. I asked him point blank, was this just a depth thing? And Joe Sloan was pretty candid here.
Jawan wanted to come back to quarterback. I couldn't be more excited to have him. He's obviously a different style of quarterback than maybe the other two guys. You're going to have to respect his feet. And, just working through him, I think you've seen his growth from a passing standpoint. He throws a good ball, but in terms of his read progressions and doing the things he needs to do, and then, just his footwork and commanding the huddle, I think he has great leadership skills. And obviously he's been electric with the ball in his hand. Made a couple big plays when we've been in live tackle situations. So I think he's been excited. He's been fun to coach. He's attentive, and he's getting after it.
That's going to be really interesting to see. Listen, Jawan Johnson, you heard him say throws a really pretty ball. He's got to learn reading progressions and all that sort of stuff. Again, another reason for spring. I'm curious if they build packages for Jawan. You heard him say he's dynamic with the ball. We know that. Listen, Jawan Johnson set the Louisiana high school record for touchdowns, passing yards, total yards. Again, the history of this state, there's been some good ones. No one has gained more yards total, more yards through the air, or scored more touchdowns than Jawan Johnson. That's a mouthful to think of it that way. When he moved to running back this year, in his first game ever, collegiate game as a running back, he scored a touchdown. They got to find a way to put the ball in his hands. You can't just move Jawan Johnson to quarterback. He's too good of an athlete. You can't move him to quarterback and then just bury him third on the depth chart or fourth on the depth chart. We'll see when Colin Hurley comes back and never have him see the field. He can affect the game in a lot of ways. They got to figure out ways to get him to do that. That's going to be interesting to see. Realistically, if I'm just being very candid, I don't see a reality where Jawan Johnson is ever the starting quarterback at LSU. It's such a high-profile position, and you're always going to be able to go out and attack the transfer portal and the high school ranks and get highly rated guys. Jawan Johnson is an amazing athlete. To think he's going to win a starting quarterback job at LSU feels ambitious, but he can help you offensively in 2025. It's on them to see how they can do it. Now, we haven't even talked about the starter yet. So I want to talk about Garrett Nussmeier and also an update on Colin Hurley, kind of ear to ground what I've been hearing. We'll get to that as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. We've talked about the backups. Now let's hear what Joe Sloan had to say about the starters and the starter, Garrett Nussmeier. It started with sort of an overview of the entire quarterback room.
Excited about the room. I think Mike's done a great job. You know, he's had his learning the offense, right? That's been a big piece for him. When he gets comfortable, he got comfortable there midway through, played really, really well. Then we got in some new situations, right? Now we get back in those same situations. Now he's playing well again, right? I think he's doing really well. He's battling through, and he's working on the things he needs to work on. You know, so I couldn't be more excited about what Mike and the growth he's made, and then Jawan and some of the different things that he brings and what he's done in some different unique situations and packages. I think he can help our football team. So excited with the group.
And the group is led by Garrett Nussmeier, who is now heading into his second year as a starter, his fifth year in the program, the only returning passer in college football to throw for 4,000 yards a season ago. So he's college football's leading returning passer. And he's heading into year two now as a veteran
Garrett
player.
was prepared to play, but then there are certain things that he needed to go through that you can only get preparation by playing. You can only get the experience by playing. And I think he's learned from that. You know, this offseason has been able to be a little bit different because now he's going back, and when he's studying, he's not just studying his practice tape or maybe our tape and what could happen. He's looking at specifically some stuff that he needs to improve on. And I think he's been really intentional. Really, some of our staff did a great job of breaking some different things down for him so he could really see some individual things, and he could take back control of those situations. You know, whether it be something technical with a throw, whether it be the understanding of a defense, whether it be how we're playing, whether it be our footwork, all different kinds of things. And being able to really be intentional, take control of that, and make those corrections. And the big thing now is taking that to practice. And really, a lot of it he's been doing a great job with. And then there's still some things, right? We're still a work in progress. And I think he's done an excellent job of attacking that. I couldn't be more proud of him.
You know, what Joe said there at the beginning of that cut about there's some things you can only learn through experience makes a lot of sense. Let's use the worst experience of 2024, the Texas A&M game. You're up 2 scores in the second half. You're in complete command of the game. And Garrett's rolling to his left, and he throws across his body and throws an interception in the middle of the field. You're up 10. They can't move the ball. Don't give him anything. Just don't give him anything. And you gave him that. And you gave him another one and another one. While it sucked living through that, that's going to do one of two things to you. it's either going to make you a more hardened veteran player that's going to learn from that mistake, or it's going to break you. Well, I don't think it's going to break Garrett Nussmeier. And so really the way I would look at it is to say, okay, well, that was terrible to have to watch as it happened and what it meant for the team in 2024. If Garrett Nussmeier's in that situation, up 10 on the road in a situation in 2025 where the defense is smothering the opponent and he's rolling to his left, maybe next time he just runs out of bounds or throws the ball away. I'm not saying that's in his DNA to run out of bounds or throw it away, but he has the learned experience of being on the road in that situation and what happened. It's so different than you and I doing anything in our lives. Like you put your hand on the stove once, you learn, that's hot, man. Don't put your hand on the stove. I don't like that feeling. So you want Garrett to be aggressive. Of course you do. It's a part of his DNA and always will be. It's the touchdown pass he made to Aaron Anderson against Ole Miss on 4th down when you needed 10 yards to keep the game going. Instead, he throws deep over the middle into double coverage. And it's aces. It's a touchdown that sends the game to overtime. But there are still ways he can improve. And another one that that Joe Sloan is it's Garrett running the football. Obviously, look, one of the situations I just described to you was the Texas A&M play. Garrett could have turned upfield, run out of bounds, maybe could have gotten the first down, maybe not, maybe just run out of bounds, see how it goes. But there was a play in the scrimmage that the media got to watch last Tuesday where Garrett is extending the play, moving the pocket to the right. Finally, he just takes off and runs about 20 yards. And there was another play that was a zone read play with Garrett where he tucked it and ran it around right end for about 15 yards. On that one, Joe Sloan turned to the media, and we're up on a perch on a balcony at the new athletic training facility. It's where we're watching this year. Instead of field level, they put us up there. Joe kind of looked up to the balcony. He's like, y'all like that one too, didn't you? Kind of just laughing because of all the commentary about Garrett Nussmeier running the football. But it's something that Joe said without even being provoked. When he was asked about improvements in the running game, he brought up Garrett running the football.
We got to be multiple in the run game, right? I mean, Garrett needs to run more. He knows that, right? That's something that we've talked about. But Garrett's not going to go run for 1,000 yards next year, okay? I don't think you guys need to worry about that, right? So we need to be multiple in our run attack, right? And be able to attack people different ways. And that's really been the focal point. But yet, keeping it, as we get more multiple, keeping it simple for our guys so they can go attack. And I think you saw that growth as the year went on. And then that's been the focal point, right, moving into this offseason. And then pairing it all together. And we can work our different actions and things like that off of that. And I think the kids have really attacked it, and I think we've been able to do some good things and make sure that Nuss sees those pictures and understands, right, how he needs to help us in those situations, which has been really, really good.
That's growth and learning. But just to piggyback there on that point from Joe, when he kind of jokes that Garrett needs to run, but he's not going to run for 1,000 yards. Okay. A year ago, Garrett ran 34 times for negative 38 yards. Of course, it's stupid that sack numbers count in the rushing total. So that's baked in there. But 34 for negative 38. Okay. By comparison, I'm not going to count Jaden Daniels, obviously, completely freak, different animal altogether. But go back to 2019 and look at Joe Burrow, or even 2018, Burrow's 4th year in college, his first as a starter. Okay, that's probably a better comp. Joe Burrow ran 128 times that year for 399 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Is it plausible that Garrett could carry the ball 128 times? You could say you don't want to expose him to those hits. That's fine. I'll remind you, in 2018, LSU didn't have backup. The only other scholarship quarterback on the roster was sophomore Miles Brennan, who we later learned was injured and wasn't even available. So after Joe, you were talking about a walk-on, and Joe still ran 128 times for 399 and 7 touchdowns. I'm not saying those were design runs, but when there were opportunities to run and protect yourself, he did it. That's what you need to expect from Garrett Nussmeier in 2025. Now, the other quarterback on the roster who we're not seeing in spring is Colin Hurley. And there's kind of been this question about if Colin Hurley was going to return. We know he was in the auto accident, and you saw pictures of the vehicle. It was gnarly and very scary. Brian Kelly confirmed to us that Colin Hurley was home in Jacksonville going through rehab and recovery. And as I've been told, kind of ear to ground, asking around, Colin apparently is doing very well physically, coming through all that recovery, which is great to hear. They do expect him back, not in spring, but they do expect him back with the team and the program. Look, the spring transfer portal window is coming, and obviously you've moved Jawan Johnson to quarterback. You have Michael Van Buren here, and Colin Hurley's gone through a pretty scary, life-changing situation. I'm not suggesting that I know anything, but it would be natural to speculate and to wonder if he would be leaving the program. Well, it's my understanding that they do expect him back with the program here for the 2025 season, which is great because that would be another scholarship quarterback, a guy that's been in your system for another year, continue to grow and develop. Because an ideal situation for LSU is not to have another gap in the depth, to where after this year when Garrett Nussmeier is gone, you've got Van Buren, who has 9 games as a starter under his belt, and then you've got Colin Hurley as well. So you got 2 scholarship quarterbacks there, then Jawan Johnson pushing them next, and then whatever freshman quarterback you'll bring in for the class of 2026 as well. So as you sort of look to the future of the quarterback position as well, a lot of that is taking shape in this spring with Van Buren, Johnson, and eventually Colin Hurley rejoining that mix, hopefully after spring, sometime maybe in June, to go through June workouts with the rest of his teammates. All right. Excuse me. All right. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. One more thing that I want you to hear from Joe Sloan, and it wasn't about the quarterbacks. It was about the tight ends. And I think you're going to like it. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. It also offers all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
As we come down the home stretch of today's episode of Locked on LSU, there's one more thing Joe Sloan, well, he said a lot that was interesting, but this one I wanted you to hear because he was talking about the tight ends. Now, if you remember, and if you're an everydayer, and thank you for that, shout out to all of our everydayers, Brian Kelly met with reporters on Saturday, and the focus, if you caught that episode, if you didn't, just scroll back, you can catch it. The focus of that episode was physicality. It was just so obvious. Talking about physicality in the run game, talking about developing physicality with the tight ends. We talked about Destin Hill, who his early path to the field is going to be as a physical blocking receiver, the role that CJ Daniels filled a year ago. So we know physicality is something they want. And a lot of that is with the tight ends. You have Bauer Sharp, who already is that guy, and Trey'Dez Green, who is becoming that guy. Well, Joe Sloan talked about the tandem of Bauer Sharp and Trey'Dez Green working together.
The cool thing is Bauer and Trey'Dez have really hit it off. Just how those guys are pushing each other and competing with each other. You know, they both have excellent skill sets on the perimeter, but at the same point in time, I think they bring a little bit different things, you know, when it comes athletically. I've heard people describe a tight end room as you want like a basketball team, right? Everybody can't be the same because we're going to have a lot of different assignments and roles that we ask those guys to play. And I think when you look back, what Coach Kelly's done with tight ends and now what we've done with tight ends since we've been here.
I love that analogy. And he said he's heard people say, but I've never heard anybody say that. I love the analogy of the tight end room being like a basketball team where you have to have guys that play different roles. It's true. You have to have a point guard. You have to have a shooting guard. You have to have wings. You have to have forwards. You have to have bigs that can camp down low on the block and grab rebounds. Yeah, You have to have dudes with different skill sets that can do a lot. Think back when Les Miles was the coach. I remember Dylan Gordon was a 300-pound tight end. They put the 85 jersey on him, but really he was just an athletic tackle wearing a tight end's jersey. Brian Kelly had that with Connor Gilbreth. Remember, they also used Bo Bordelon, an offensive lineman, when they would put a tight end jersey on him to use him as an extra blocker. Well, contrast that to Trades Green. Even look at the signing class a couple of years ago where you had four tight ends that you signed, from Mac Markway, who was sort of your prototype dual threat guy, Connor Gilbreth, who really was a blocker that wanted to grow into his body more and become an offensive tackle, Jackson McGowan, who was a thinner pass catching tight end, Kamorian Pimpton, who was the long athletic freak show kind of baby giraffe figuring out his body and how to play. But you had four tight ends, and they were all four so very different from one another. You can tell that's the mold Brian Kelly wants. And even when you look back at his teams at Notre Dame, yeah, you had guys like Kyle Rudolph, and you had guys that were your prototype tight ends, but you also had guys like Alize Mack, who was more of an athletic pass-catching type tight end. So, yes, you've always seen that variety. And I've told you this before. Brian Kelly, in his decade at Notre Dame, has as many tight ends drafted as it took LSU from 1980 to the day Brian Kelly showed up. I mean, it took Kelly a decade at Notre Dame to do what LSU did in 40 years, pumping tight ends into the NFL draft. So this is a guy that uses the tight end, knows how to use the tight end. You have two guys there in Bauer Sharp and Trades Green who are getting along and have very different skill sets as well. And because of that, you're going to see them both on the field a ton. It's just, I mean, they're showing us when we're out there. They have a bunch of two tight end sets, and you're going to see them both attached. You're going to see Trades flexed out at H-back. Same thing with Bauer. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those guys. Remember, Bauer Sharp wears number 10, Trades Green wears number 14, and you're going to see a lot of those two dudes on the field at the same time in 2025. Get excited about that position group because there's a lot to be excited about. A lot to be excited about with this Tiger team, as they're a little more than halfway home now in spring football. And, of course, as they move through spring, we'll have you updated here every single day. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. Remember, thanks for making us your first listen. Now for your second listen, go check out Locked On College Basketball. Become the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, do us a favor. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.